I'm Ricky.
And I'm Joe, and this is Season 6, Episode 18 of the Beer and Broadband Podcast, and it's slated to come out on November 13th, 2023. We did take a week off. I think it was a whole week. And sorry about not announcing that, but, we had Ren fairs to go to and stuff like that. So we're now finishing things up for the last of the season. But today we're going to be talking about a really special and important wheat ale that I think is only near and dear to most North Carolinians, maybe South Carolinians too, because we have Cheerwine down there. So this is NODA Brewing Company's Cheerwine Ale. They don't really say very much about it other than it's a uniquely southern wheat ale crafted with perfect touch of cherry, proudly presented from two family-owned companies in the Carolinas. 5.2% ABV, and Ricky's been sipping on it. So, what do you think?
I'll start with this. Not a huge fan. It's not something I would drink very often, but they nailed it.
Yeah.
This tastes exactly like Cheerwine. You know, it's a little bit less sweet, a little bit more obviously alcoholic. It's, an ale. But, I mean, if you like Cheerwine, this is like 90% Cheerwine in terms of flavor profile.
That is 100% correct. It's not as sweet as Cheerwine, but it tastes like Cheerwine.
Yeah, it really does. Like, if I was blindfolded, I would easily be able to guess this was Cheerwine. I would maybe even call you out and say, "Did you just put yeast in Cheerwine to see what would happen?"
Yeah. Did you mix a little bit of like a beer and Cheerwine together to see like what sort of weird radler you could make?
See, I'm not even sure I'd go that far because it is so Cheerwine heavy in terms of flavor profile. Like, I'm not sure I believe this was like 50% Cheerwine and 50% an ale. Like, it really does just taste like you turn some of the sugar in Cheerwine into alcohol.
I think that's similar enough to what they did. That's a good description of it. One thing that I'll say about this, a funny story. I got this, graduation party was somewhere in June. So right after we finished the other, like, half of the season.
Okay, yeah.
I got this, and I had it in the fridge. I was just saving it for when we were going to do our next beer and broadband. It was supposed to be like one of the first beers that we did. And my daughters had some extended family come over because they're, we do like a foster parent thing and all that other stuff. So they had some of their extended family come over, and one of their uncles saw them. And I was like, yeah, feel free to have like a couple of beers or anything you want in the fridge, being hospitable. He drank like the whole 4-pack. So he liked it. He loved this stuff. And then we have another common friend, Taryn, who had these like this, and she was just like, that is amazing. This is great. So
yeah, I mean, if I liked Cheerwine more, which I loved Cheerwine as a kid, but I did that thing where you drink too much of it as a child and you don't want it as an adult. My wife still loves Cheerwine. I'm probably going to see if I can find some of these to buy her. Yeah. Because she loves like a Cheerwine float, and this would make a great Cheerwine float.
It would make a great alcoholic Cheerwine float. I mean, of course, you could do that with vodka and Cheerwine, but this would also achieve that with a lower ABV.
I mean, I'm going to be honest. I think this probably tastes better than Cheerwine and vodka. Because
Agreed. I was just saying you could have an alcoholic float with both.
That's true. Yeah, you could spike it with something. But I mean, even just the like flavor of the alcohol itself melds so well with the Cheerwine, the rest of the flavor. Whereas like, vodka almost has like a medicinal taste a lot of times.
Right.
So yeah, I gotta say I'm pretty impressed by it. Again, I wouldn't drink another one. I'm probably not gonna finish what you poured me, but it is an impressive creation.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty impressive. I thought one of the reasons that I thought that this would be fun for us to do is we did that sweet tea, the Bojangles sweet tea that was just horrendous.
It was. And that's not this. I mean, this is not my personal.
Amazing.
Yeah, this is not my personal preference, but like it's not bad. Like it is objectively very well crafted. I mean, it's very impressive. It's probably one of the more impressive things I've had on this podcast in terms of like how well it nails its flavor profile.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like what there was that Deschutes, the Abyss, this, Dragon's Milk, which I think we both agree really nails the flavor profile. Not the white, but the regular Dragon's Milk. And there's another one that was a fruit beer.
Yeah, we had a fruit beer once. It was like almost cidery. It was
it was so
forward.
good. Yeah. I think this one is in that category, like of the ones that we've had. There's like a top tier of just well crafted, hits the nail on the head kind of thing, and this is one of them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talk about that a lot. That sometimes, well, I'm not really getting this flavor they say there is. Like, how accurate is the bottle to what it is? And I mean, that's Cheerwine Ale.
Yeah,
just done.
Absolutely. The only thing that I could think of that I wished was a little bit like if they could improve it. And this would take it from being like a beer to like a cider, is if it was like a Cheerwine drink that was alcoholic and you didn't have like some of the beer flavors, the malty.
Yeah, you're saying
flavors.
like if instead of it being like a wheat beer, it was like a fruit beer that was actually like a cherry fruit beer.
Right.
Yeah, I could see that. I could also see this potentially being darker.
Yeah.
Just because it's bring out a little bit more of that sweetness. But in all honesty, this is great.
Yeah, this is pretty fantastic. So yeah, if you're into Cheerwine and you're into, or you can get the NODA Cheerwine Ale. I think I got it at like Total Wine, so you should grab some. Or no, I got it at a Harris Teeter, because I remember now. So let's talk about the PS5 Slim. Have you seen that it was announced?
After I saw the notes, yeah.
Pretty fantastic. So before I start going into what I was, kind of planning on talking about or whatever, what do you think about the PS5 Slim just in general?
I'll be honest, I've never been a huge fan of like that slim trend that PlayStation does, that they release the same console essentially a couple of years later in a smaller form factor. Like, I guess that's cool. If you were one of those people that haven't gotten a PS5 yet, you can now get a smaller one. I think I don't want to say it's on the nose, but people had such a hard time getting a PS5 for so long. Even people who like have wanted a PS5 don't all have it yet, and now you're releasing like a new version of a PS5.
Right.
And I don't want this to become another like, oh well, eventually they made enough regular PS5s that we couldn't price gouge it anymore, but now we got the Slim.
Yeah.
So like their supply chain's going to need to be on point for not to do that, $1,000 on eBay sort of deal.
I can't agree with that. And there are people, influencers and, just tech bros and people like that who are like, oh no, I got to get a PS5 Slim. Looking at my PS5 sitting over there and how big it is, because it's a pretty significant console. It's the largest console that I own. If I had the option to have a Slim but have all the same functionality, I could see that if I was buying one right now.
Yeah.
Do I think there should be two PlayStation models, or effectively 4 PlayStation models on the, like out there for consumers to buy, from the same product SKU? Probably not. I feel like that's a little
it's a little
weird.
much.
Yeah.
And I feel like it devalues people who have a PS5 already. Like if you wanted to go trade it in, it'll now trade it for less because there's a newer, slimmer one out. Though I do like the Slim trend more than I like the Pro trend that Xbox does.
Yeah.
I don't like that they do like they haven't done it every console generation, but I think they've done it at least twice, where it's like, here's the base one, and now a year or two later we're going to release a slightly enhanced version of it.
Well, both PlayStation and Xbox did that last time, which I actually kind of like. Like if you're gonna do a like different version of something, then I would prefer that something be an enhanced version, not the same thing, just in a slightly different form factor. Like with a blue case instead of a white case or something like that, right?
Well, yeah, I'm the opposite, but let me tell you why. I have seen that when they start doing things like the Pros and the whatever they called the other one, maybe they called them both Pro, that games still come out for that console, but it always ends up running better on one versus the other.
Right.
So like if you can't upgrade to the newer one, games are going to start coming out that just don't run very well on yours because now they're being optimized for the new one.
I agree with that. That's the problem with the Series S. No, it's not the Series S. It was one of the Xbox One, whatever.
Yeah, something like that.
So they didn't call them pros for the Xbox. It was pros for the PlayStation.
Oh, it was? Okay.
Yes, because that's how I got my PlayStation. I got a PS4 Pro.
Oh, okay.
And so one of the things that I didn't like about the last generation was that Sony and Microsoft both made products to begin with that they didn't like just kind of replace. You know, like this is an old one. This is a completely new generation. They were like, this is like a 0.5 version of this generation. So I agree with you on that. I'm just saying, like, so I'm not going to go buy a PlayStation 5 Slim.
Mm.
But if there was one that existed to entice me to buy something, I would want it to give me more functionality. I would prefer that to be a new console,
Yeah.
You know, like a new version of the console, or just leave it like it is and optimize. Because I mean, my PlayStation 4 still, I just finished playing a video game on it this weekend or this week. Sorry, I forgot that I've been off all week, but this week I just finished playing one of the God of Wars. I think it was the first one. Yeah, it was the first God of War because I hadn't completely finished everything on it. So I played that on my PS4 Pro. It was just great. My PS5, pretty awesome. The Xboxes that I've ever had, they've been pretty great. I still play my 360 every now and then. It's a great little console.
Oh, yeah.
I just don't see the appeal of having a device that is slim, has the same functionality, and I know that there are people out there that are like, yeah, but it looks better and it does this and it does. You have to understand, I'm not a aesthetics person necessarily. I prefer function over form, not form over function. I think both of us kind of share that.
Yeah.
So if you're one of those people that's like, no, form, like Apple's got it right. Form matters more than function. You know, the user experience is the most important thing, and all this other stuff, we share some common agreements there. But for the most part, if the user experience is on point, I don't care if it's a little bit bigger or a little bit heavier. I also am a very strong, very tall, very large man, so take that from that grain of salt, you know.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think we also live in a world that people don't travel with their consoles as much as they used to. You know,
it's very true.
Back when consoles were comparatively more expensive and things like that, you know, I would take my N64 and stuff over to friends' house all the time because they didn't have one. But I don't see that happening as much anymore. I think it's probably because a lot of consoles now are sold at a loss. You know, they're much, comparative to the games and everything else, much cheaper than they used to be.
It's true, and the chances are if you're going over to your friend's house to play a game, your friend already has the console. Like now they're so ubiquitous, people own them. If you have the console, people are coming to your house if they don't have it, generally.
Yeah, that's true. And also, you know, the days of split screen co-op and stuff like that are pretty much gone. There's still some, but it's no longer the default. Most of the time now when someone says it's a multiplayer game, that's online only multiplayer.
It's either online only or it's, if it has split screen co-op, it is a function that is for like, well, remember in the past when we used to do this kind of stuff. It's not necessarily, you know.
Yeah, it's not super well optimized for it, or, you know, or just the stretching of the resolutions don't look good.
Exactly. All right, so the thing that I wanted to talk about this, all that background, have you seen the thing where they've got a disk drive that's an add-on? So they'll sell you the digital version, it's cheaper. You get a disk drive, and it's an add-on. What do you think about that?
I don't know. I think, look, I'll say this. As long as that disk drive works very well and is not cumbersome to set up and maintain, I don't really have a problem with that. Because I think that does simplify your manufacturing process. It simplifies your inventory systems and things like that. So there is an advantage there. But I think also at the same time, it's a lot easier for someone that wants to go digital only to say, like a company that wants to go digital only, to be like, okay, yeah, the console doesn't come with it, but we'll sell you this add-on. And the next generation, they just don't have that add-on.
They just don't have the add-on, right?
Yep.
And that's kind of the direction that everyone's going, which if it was DRM free or something like that, I wouldn't mind. But not being able to have my own, which, I mean, having a physical copy now, whether it's a Nintendo Switch copy or whatever, everything has to sign into some server to be able to be unlocked and blah, blah, blah. While I understand we have to prevent people from stealing IP, punishing me with not being able to play this thing later or in the direction that I want to play it in or something like that is not the right. But we've talked about like stuff like that before. So if you're, I'm not really a fan of DRM. I'm not like huge on piracy, but I'm not a fan of DRM.
Yeah, DRM in most implementations is pretty rough.
Yeah.
I mean, even the stuff that Steam does is still pretty rough in terms of you trying to own a game and share a game, but at least they give you the rest of the Steam experience.
But Steam doesn't, like, the DRM that comes with that is optional based on the developer. Steam doesn't lock you into that. So, like, they have, like, their own thing. They're like, well, you have to launch the Steam client to be able to access the game, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
But just like with, they don't have a mandate, so they're kind of middle of the road on that. So then you have like good old games where they're like, there is no DRM. You can't put DRM on, like have something and put it on our store and it have DRM. It's DRM free. People can launch it without our launcher, you know, have fun, do whatever they want to. You can't be part of our store if it's not like that.
Yeah.
And then, you know, consoles and other launchers like the Bethesda launcher before it got shut down, I'll go the complete opposite direction, right? So here's the thing. It's got hardware DRM on it. It's this pogo pin thing. It doesn't really use screws or anything like that. It just kind of like attaches in just like, and it looks just like this, right? It's got a little plate. You put it over it and got a slot, put it in. Everything up to that part, I was like, oh, this is cool, you know, like whatever. In order for the thing to work, it has to call home to one of Sony's servers. And like if you took it off and put it on someone else, like if you had like a console that was broken but the disk drive wasn't broken, and let's say in 10 years when they're no longer supporting it and they've taken those servers down, that's just going to quit working.
Yeah, it is. And you know, I know why they're doing some stuff like this. I know why a lot of businesses are also now pushing towards subscriber models. Like, I'm not sure if you've seen, like, kept up with financial news, but like tons of companies are slashing employee benefits or like letting employees go because it's undeniable we're going to be heading towards some rough economic times the next couple of years. So I get that, you know, this sort of recurring revenue, you don't want to lose money to people like stealing or sharing your product. But at the same time, I really feel I don't know too many people anymore that aren't still really young that buy a lot of AAA games anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I have not bought a AAA game from like a big studio that you would consider like entrenched in the industry. So like, I don't consider Baldur's Gate 3 a like entrenched in industry type of game. It's not with one of the like the big 5 or 10 developers and publishers.
Yeah,
it's not EA, it's not Blizzard.
It's not Blizzard. Yeah, it's not one of those.
Yep, that sort of
or
stuff.
Activision, not Blizzard. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because frankly, most of those big studios aren't releasing those many actually really good games for the value. You know, Capcom is maybe a bit of an exception. They've been done really good with like their Resident Evil remakes and some of their other stuff. But like the Silent Hill that just came out from Konami is a joke.
Yeah.
You know, so I just see more and more people are playing these kind of like early access or indie games and really enjoying them.
Yeah.
And they're cheaper and they don't have these problems. So like, you know, what are you going to do about that rest of the gaming industry?
Yeah.
You got to figure something out.
And I mean, I've got Dave the Diver. It runs on my Steam Deck. It's an awesome game. I can play it on my PC. It's got cross-compatible saves. That is an experience that if I could have that across all of my consoles, like I bought Dave the Diver, I play it on my PC. Now I can play it on my PS5, and I just move between the three of them. Larian tries to do that. Some of the other game studios have tried to do that, but this because of the way you have to like transfer the saves, like makes it kind of clunky. If Sony and Microsoft putting so much effort into trying to protect their, IP, that they're not even thinking about like the real important part of user experience, right? And because they're not thinking about that, they're not like actually making a better user experience. They're not actually making things better. They're releasing stupid knickknacks like the PS5 Slim. Yay, thank you. I mean, that's great. I do love my PS5, but I mostly play games on my Steam Deck. So it just feels like a first world problem, and it's stupid. But yeah, I mean, get a PS5 Slim if you want one, but I'm probably not going to.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the PS5 Slim is really there for people who don't have a PS5 yet. If you don't have one, hey, either the older one's about to become cheaper on the used market, or the new one's a little bit better form factor. Go for it.
Yeah, have fun. All right, let's talk about industry industry certificates we suggest that anyone who works in IT gets. And I named 2 of them here because I think anyone that works in IT is either going down a management route, or they're going down like a technical, like kind of advisor, right? Like kind of route. Like this is what you should deploy, especially as you like get past like your first like 3 or 4 years in IT, right?
Yeah, once you're out of your kind of like peak engineering days, you either end up as like a tech lead or a people lead.
Right. And so when you do that, and I mean, that's essentially like us, right? Like we worked together. I was kind of like your technical leader there for a little while. You were my developer, and now you're more of like a people leader, and I am more of like a technical lead, right? So that said, I think, especially if you're a technical leader, it goes well for both like sides of it. But if you're doing technical lead stuff, having an ITIL4 or 3 or whatever version of ITIL there is really helpful for understanding like support processes, how you get inputs and outputs for things, in any sort of process. It is a ridiculous system that is very British. So for any of my British friends that are out there that are listening, I'm not insulting you, but you also have to admit that you guys like love to have a lot of processes and rules, right? So ITIL is, but it also is it's like it gives you like this sandbox that you can kind of play in, but you understand how all the different components work together. And the deeper you get into that, I think it's better, to like you go from like just the foundation to what is the master or whatever the next one is. I don't remember exactly what it is. You go through that eventually becomes more of like a management or a project management type certificate track. So it's not a perfect thing for technical people, but it like if I'm just going to get a certificate that's not like a CCNA or a Red Hat, certificate or something like that, or one of the Azure or AWS certificates, this one is, I think, really good and can be used in any industry that you're working in.
Yeah, that's true, because ITIL is really not so much about, it's service management. It's not necessarily IT service management.
Right.
There's a couple things that are maybe a little bit more IT focused, but just the same thing as like with, agile processes. It's about a way of work and not the actual work. But I am going to say this. I disagree with you pretty hard on this.
Okay.
With one exception. If your company will pay for it, then absolutely go for it.
Oh, yeah.
If you have to pay for it out of pocket, I think this is one of the worst certs you can get. And
I agree with that. But this is also kind of like the A+ cert. Like if I was working for the government and they were going to pay for me to get an A+ or a Security Plus or something like that, I'd totally get those. Yeah. If I was paying for it out of pocket, I wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, I still think there's instances of the A+ and things like that are valuable. But at the end of the day, you can get with your study material and your exams, you can get an A+ for less than $500. Probably a lot less. I don't know what they're charging for the test right now. But I got mine. I think the test was like $200 when I took it.
It was $250 at the time that you took it.
Okay, so it was around like $200, $250, and my book was only about like $40-$50. So I spent about $300 to get it. The ITIL to even sit to take to the exam, you generally have to pay $3,000 or $4,000.
Right.
Because you can't take the exam until you've taken one of their official courses. And frankly, the material is good, but you can find ITIL books. You can find like even people who put together Quizlets for when they've taken the ITIL. The information is valuable, but they're not hard exams. Like if you're sitting here listening right now and you are like an engineer, or you're like doing troubleshooting, or you're like already in the tech field, you will have no problem picking up any book and learning all the material they have in the fundamental in just a matter of days.
Yeah.
And then you've got all the education. The barrier for the certificate doesn't make much sense to me, unless again, you know, a lot of ITIL companies, as part of their like ITIL partnership, will pay for the training. At which point, yeah, go take it. You're not paying for it. It's a good cert to have. It does teach you a lot about project management and service management. But if you're sitting right now, hey, I want to up my game, but right now I'm, you know, working in a call center, or I'm part of like a local IT team, and they're not going to pay for my training. I'd much rather say, hey, look, save that money, go save that for your next technical exam, and just go buy a book and go learn this stuff.
Yeah, so let me roll back a little bit and let me caveat this. If you work for a company that pays for these certificates, do not get these on your own.
Yeah.
But if you can get the education for them, they're very helpful.
Yes.
Even if you're like, I don't know what ITIL is, you know, go look it up. There's also one for I'm forgetting, it's not OSHA, it's not OSI, because those are the wrong things. But there's another one that's another industry standard. It's more like APJC, like kind of centric. And then you have like another one that's like the Engineering Task Force, the EITF or something like that, or IETF or something like that. But the point that I was trying to get to is, if you work for a company and you're trying to advance your career and you have these options to go take, nobody's going to tell you, hey, this one's more for like a technical standpoint. This one will help you more technically. And this one helps you to become more of like a people leader, or to like do these things. The ITIL can kind of do both. You know, anything that gives you like some soft skills that help you to be both a leader and understand technical processes is good for you if you're a technical person, I think.
Yeah, and I think, you know, in that type of scenario, you also get maybe one of the best blankets of liability, which is, I'm doing what the process is supposed to be.
Right.
You know, I think I've done the saying a couple times, but like in the IT industry, maybe not so much nowadays, but when I was growing up, the big fun saying was, you know, nobody gets fired for doing what Google did.
Right.
You know, if when things go wrong and you can say, look, but we did it by the books, things just happen sometimes, and you can show like, look, I'm certified in this, I know how to do it. It's just, you know, look, there's always accidents. That looks a lot better than, hey, I'm somebody with no process training who did something and it didn't work out very well.
Right.
Because then they'll come back at you and say, okay, well, what did you do wrong? Versus not, where did the process fail? You know?
I agree with that. I think another certificate that falls into this, like if I was getting it on my own, like I was paying my own dime, I would not get it. But one of the ones that I'm looking at next to get from like a technical standpoint, because I've done training for it, I've even written like some industry standard test questions for it, the CISSP and the CSSP.
Yep.
You know, those are really good from like a security technical standpoint, and like a understanding management kind of technical standpoint. So I think those are good also certificates that fit in this realm. They're industry standard.
Absolutely.
They give you a lot of process information. They give you a lot of like context of what's going on. The other one that I had on here, which I didn't have the CISSP on here, but is the Agile PMI, like the Practitioner certificate, because that really, I've taken a waterfall training before. I've taken some other ones. I feel like the Agile one gives you the most context to what project management actually is supposed to achieve.
Yeah. Yeah, if you work in an Agile shop, then yeah, I always recommend taking some of either the practitioners, or ideally, you know, even if you're not like a POPM, most of those certificate tracks, the companies that do this training have a POPM cert. I highly encourage people to go take that, because you as an engineer, you know your technical work. You're really like just mostly consuming stories. So like understanding the terminology and stuff is great from like the practitioner, but understanding how requests from customers flow into your POs or your PMs making stories that come down to you can be very helpful. Because frankly, I don't know too many shops that stick to the standard of how you're supposed to write a story. And frankly, the way you're supposed to write a story is kind of long and convoluted anyway. So, but just understanding that flow of a request comes in, I do something of value, value goes out is important.
Yeah.
Understanding those value streams is very important because it helps you, just as an engineer, better understand your work and how your work is going to be viewed by the people making like hiring decisions, promotion decisions, things like that.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that. And I couldn't think of, like, I didn't really sit down and start thinking of, like, all the ones that are out there, because there's a ton.
Oh, yeah, there's a bajillion Agile trainers and stuff like that.
Well,
and just even project management trainers and stuff like that.
Well, I mean, on top of that, there's, like, data science certificates. If you're working, like, I mean, even, like, being a network engineer, I need a little bit of data science and understanding how business and analysis works at a technical leadership level, because I need to understand how the process works and also how we get the data. And then I can question the data more thoroughly. Not that I like being that guy who's like, oh, you did it wrong or whatever, but I can actually question it, validate it. If it's right, then great. If it's not right, then I can help to correct that instead of just criticizing, which that's the worst thing about being someone that's untrained in these things is you get some of that training. You then have people that are educated in it that are saying, no, this is the way it's supposed to be because blank, blank, blank. And then like you come down to it and you're like, no, that's not really the way this is supposed to be. And they kind of like fight a little bit back and forth about that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think everybody, especially in IT, really should take like a data analysis or a data science course to understand that a little bit better, because really what those things hammer down to you, once you get out of the mathematics and the analytics, the part is that the quality of the data coming in is the largest factor on how well you can actually draw conclusions.
Yep.
And that's sometimes something that gets missed by people who have less of an education in it. So I see all the time, management or somebody else will come in and say, hey, I need data for X. And we just almost be like, look, we can try, but it won't be good.
Right.
Because, an example, we wanted to know what sort of cases came in for a very particular issue that there's no coding metrics for.
Right.
So I can't go in there, when we resolve a case, it's not like we have a drop down in our menu for this issue. So there's no way for the engineers to actually record that's exactly what the problem was. Instead, the best we could do was, all right, I'm going to look for keywords in the description.
Right.
Or in the resolution notes. And that's not great.
Nope.
At all. You can get some general trends with that, but if you'll never get a hard number.
Right.
Because let's say, we'll do it something real simple. Let's say somebody was getting like blue screens on their laptop, and you don't have a code for that, and you want to find out how often people are, like engineers are dealing with blue screens. Okay, well, what are you gonna call that in the resolution notes? You're gonna search resolution because the case notes are gonna be too large.
Yep.
So you're gonna say, okay, blue. Look for the word blue. Oh, someone had a problem where their color scheme wasn't right. That's gonna show up. Someone said found out issues user was they had blue light turned off, which is why their screen was orange.
Right.
Maybe you put blue screen or blue and screen. Okay, well now someone's recording it as crash.
Yeah.
So maybe you put in crash, but all crashes aren't blue screens.
Right.
And you run into that level that if you're not sanitizing your data, you really can't do a whole lot with it that's precise.
Exactly. And I think that is the nail on the head of the value that things like this bring. If you don't understand how processes work, you really can't criticize or improve your processes.
Yeah.
If you don't understand how your planning works, you really can't criticize or improve your planning process. If you don't understand how your data is gathered and what good data is versus bad data metrics, you can't understand how to improve those things. And as a technical or a people leader, that should be your goal. There's like 3 things that you're supposed to do. 1, improve the technical ability of whatever company you're working for to do better. 2, you should be improving the technical or career goals of your people. And then 3, you should be responsible with the stuff that's been given to you. Kind of give so that they'll watch the people and make sure that they're taken care of so that they'll take care of you kind of mindset, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just agreeing with you. I get nerdy about these things. Yeah, but did you want to say anything more about that, or?
No, I think we're good. I think if your company will pay for it, soft skills are always important. And look at a couple hard skills that are maybe not your core task, but can help you complete it. Things like data analysis, data science.
Right.
If your day-to-day job is not programming, but you deal with a lot of automation, go find out what language that's written in.
Yep.
Go take a little course on that so that you can understand it a little bit better.
Yep, exactly. I can't tell you, we use a lot of Python in our shop. How much better I got at being valuable. I was already pretty technically astute at being a network engineer, but just adding that little bit of a skill set to my network engineering tool belt, really opened doors. So you should totally do that if that's an option for you. And I know that some of the people that are on this, listen to this podcast, they're like developers. So I would also say it kind of the opposite way. Like if you don't know enough about hardware or like the hardware that your stuff runs on or anything like that, which I think they probably do, but you should learn that because that makes you better at whatever. Like being a better engineer means that you understand better the whole engineering process, not just one aspect of it.
You're just a developer, go learn networking.
Yep.
Knowing how your data is going to travel from your app to your server and everything like that can be very useful.
Absolutely. It helps troubleshooting when things don't work too.
Oh yeah, exactly. I can't tell you how many cases I've seen over the years of a developer who thinks there's something wrong with the network. It wasn't the network, it was something else. And that's not a fault of theirs. Network's there to help them when those things break. But if you know a little bit more networking, you might have been able to save yourself a couple days on your project because you weren't waiting for network to fix a problem that wasn't there.
Yep, exactly. All right, well, I think this is the end of this episode. So this has been Season 6, Episode 18, the Beer and Broadband Podcast. It's supposed to come out on November 13th, 2023. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time.